And basically what it was a lending model that involved three entities. There was the borrower, who was typically a driver of a cab aggregator, like Ola and Uber. And the second was the lender, and the third was the cab aggregator company themselves. And the model was very simple, right? The driver would buy a smartphone on the basis of a loan given by the lender, and he would pay the first few rupees of his earnings from the cab aggregator directly to the lender, right? So the cab aggregator transferred the first few rupees of earnings straight to the lender. There were two parts of it that were very interesting in this model, right? The first was that the entire transaction would happen in 30 minutes. And the second was that the typical ticket size was between 7 to 10,000 rupees, which was the borrowing that the taxi driver was doing to buy the smartphone. Now that captures the power of fintech. Look at fintech when compared with traditional banking. Let's start with insurance. It used to take about 7 days to get a motor settlement claim. Now it's about 20 minutes, right? Payments through checks used to take about 3 days. It's now come to pretty much instant, right? Lending and deposit used to take something like a year in terms of the tenor. Now, a lot of lending happens for tenors of 3 months. Time to raise capital used to be 6 months, it's now days. Portfolio management fee, you name it. Whichever side you're looking at in terms of time, you shrunk by a huge percentage. The amount of time taken to execute an action or indeed the tenor. If you look at the cost, the customer acquisition cost used to be something like 1,500 rupees. It's now dropped to about 150 rupees for a lending transaction. The lending cost used to be something like anywhere between 7,000 rupees to 2 lakh. That has dropped to 1,700 rupees to about 5,000. So it's a significant drop by 75%. Transaction costs used to be 40-50 rupees, they're now something like a rupee or less, and so on and so forth. Microfinance used to lend, and still does lend, to a consumer base that are firstly all women, and secondly, the typical ticket size could be as low as 2,000 rupees. Compare that with the banking industry, where the typical credit size used to be about 30,000 rupees, right? So 30,000 rupees ticket size dropped to 2,000 rupees. What happened as a result of that was that the microfinance industry has brought in between 50 million to 100 million new consumers into the formal financial sector. Fintech, by the way, is going to drop in terms of the minimum ticket size to hundreds or a few thousands. That's going to have a yet another expansion in terms of the frontiers of customers that are actually taking formal finance services. So historically, what has held back the financial services segment? So typically it's been 4 things, right? There's been regulatory barriers, there's been technology barriers, there's been lack of efficiency in terms of ease and access to financial products, and fourth, there's been some behavior and attitude concerns. So take a look at this chart. What you see is 4 quadrants. As you go towards the right, you see the percent of GDP increasing, right? As you go from the lower to upper part of the chart, you have what we call financial access. So if you're at the bottom left quadrant, you're talking about low access and low debt. If you're talking about the top right, you're talking about high access and high debt. So let's go back in time to about the middle of 1980s, right? So what you had was India was at the bottom left of these 4 quadrants. So in other words, low financial access and low debt. Now fast forward about 30 years and come to 2016. All the countries have moved out of the bottom left quadrant. India is still there, right? So take a look at this chart. And some countries have typically moved towards higher levels of debt and then moved up to access. So what we've done in Dun & Bradstreet is we have modeled GDP growth and linked it to what happens if the economy remains a cash economy, what happens if it moves from cash to digital, and what happens when it moves from digital to fintech, right? And take a look at the chart out here. Just to quantify it for you, obviously an economy that has embraced fintech, right, is the highest curve, the highest trajectory. But to quantify it, in the next 20 years, from now to 2040, the amount of additional GDP we will add, beyond what we already are going to add, is equal to all the GDP we've added from independence to now. That's been 70 years. That's the power of what fintech can do for India.